everyone, and welcome to the Ophthalmology Business Podcast. We help you develop your ideal practice with help of other doctors and experts. The topics we cover include marketing, management, leadership, recruitment, HR, mindsets, and more. I am Dr. Parikh, one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to join the Ophthalmology Business Academy, www.obacademy.org. The membership is on us, and it's our gift to you. Today, I'm very excited to talk to Dr. Emilio Justo. Dr. Justo is the medical director at Arizona Eye Institute and Cosmetic Laser Center about how to incorporate upper lid blepharoplasty into any ophthalmologist toolkit. Let's jump in. So, Dr. Justo, I thank you for joining us. I know time zone-wise, you're a couple of hours behind me. I think you're over in Arizona, so I really appreciate you joining us this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. And yes, just for the record, we're 3 hours behind you.
That's right. Dr. Justo, I understand you have a unique background. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your history in getting to where you are today.
Okay. Well, in a nutshell, my background is such that I'm actually a Cuban refugee. Came to the United States at the age of 3 as my parents and I fled communist Cuba. Unlike many Cuban refugees who grew up in Miami, I actually grew up in Northwest Indiana, close to Gary, Indiana. I'm sure many of you have heard of Gary. I had a wonderful childhood. Of course, we didn't have much growing up as refugees. I was extremely fortunate to be accepted into the University of Michigan's 6-year pre-medical medical program. They were only accepting 1 out of 10 out-of-state students, and miraculously, I got the spot. And so I finished high school at 17, finished medical school at Michigan at 23, did my ophthalmology residency, and finished at 27, and that was in Washington, D.C. And then at that time decided to move to Arizona strictly because of the weather, the blue skies, the palm trees, and I've been there ever since. So since 1989, I've been in Sun City West, Arizona, and I just started a month ago. I started my 35th year in practice.
That's fantastic. How did you? You were really young when you graduated from medical school. How did you end up choosing ophthalmology?
That's a very interesting question, and I'll be blatantly honest with how, because I get this question actually from my medical students. I have medical students that rotate with me, and I ask them the same question, and then they turn around and ask me. And so the honest truth is, going through medical school, we develop certain biases, right? And we observe the attendings and the people who lecture to us, and they make an impact. I mean, they really do. Going into medical school, I thought for sure I was going to go into obstetrics, and then quickly realized that I really didn't care for it that much. I didn't want the emergencies and overnight hours, that sort of thing, plus the liability. But one of the things I noticed in medical school is that as a whole, and I have friends who fall into these specialties, so please don't take it personally. But as a general rule, the internists tended to be kind of the nerdy bookworm type people, personality-wise. The general surgeons tended to be kind of a little bit on the arrogant side, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But yet, when I observed the ophthalmologists, particularly starting in the didactic portion of medical school before even the clinicals, they all seemed just so nice. They were just mild-mannered, approachable, humble, well-dressed. I mean, there was just a different aura, a different personality. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, gosh, it could be a nice specialty. You can deal with patients of many different ages. For the most part, you have a lot of gratification from patients and being able to help them, with some exceptions, like in your field in retina. Obviously, it's not always the case. So really, that's truly what swayed me into ophthalmology. It's simple as that.
When I speak to medical students deciding on a career path, the thing that seems to interest a lot of people about ophthalmology is the different aspects of it, the medical aspects of it, the surgical aspects of it. And it seems to be there's sort of a niche for everyone within ophthalmology. What are
Correct.
your specific interests and your forte within ophthalmology?
Yeah. So my career and my path has evolved over 35 years. When I first got started, I was gung ho, and I was doing everything. I came from a good uh, clinical residency where we ran our own clinics, under the observation of attendings. So we did a ton of surgery. And so I came out, really feeling good about everything. So at the beginning, I was doing not only the standard cataracts, I was doing, ton of trabeculectomies. I was doing corneal transplants. We had a good bread and butter plastics background. So I was doing basic oculoplastics, blepharoplasties, levators, muleirectomies, ectropions, entropions. So I kind of did everything. And then little by little, as the practice evolved, I started pushing more towards the cosmetic arena, and I did a lot of postgraduate training in other offices, non-ophthalmic offices, where I learned to do facelifts, endoscopic brow lifts, full body liposuction. I trained with Jeff Klein, one of the, you might call it the inventors of tumescent liposuction. So for many years, I was, in addition to my ophthalmology, I was doing a whole array of, let's call it plastic surgery, which I enjoy tremendously. But now, as the years have gone by, and I've gotten a little bit older, I think I turned 40 not too long ago. Joke. But probably in the last 5 years, I've really whittled down and laser focused on two primary things. Number one is the laser assisted, femto refractive cataract surgery with advanced technology implants. We have our own LensX femtosecond laser, and then from an oculoplastic standpoint, I adapted the CO2 laser, the carbon dioxide laser, back in the mid 90s. So in the Phoenix metro area, I was fortunate to be probably the first using the CO2 laser, not only for blepharoplasties, but also for laser skin resurfacing. So now I do a ton of CO2 laser blepharoplasties. I still do my bread and butter plastics. I do my levators and muleirectomies and ectropions and entropions, and I do endoscopic brow lifts. But I've kind of put aside the longer procedures because I'm not so much into them anymore. So things like facelifts and liposuction, I've kind of put aside, not because, I mean, they're great procedures, great patient satisfaction, but they are longer procedures. And I really like the shorter procedures. I can do an upper and lower lid blepharoplasty with laser in 45 minutes, and it's a great procedure, great patient satisfaction. So that's kind of where I am at this stage in my career.
Wow, that's really impressive. It seems like you're doing a lot of things in the beginning, and you've sort of narrowed down your focus to the things you really enjoy doing and the things that give you satisfaction. Do you do a lot of these blepharoplasty cases and the CO2 laser cases out of an ambulatory surgery center, or is that built into your office? How do you do it?
Yes, well, that's an excellent question, and we are very blessed and fortunate that we have in our Sun City West office, which is kind of our flagship office. We also have the Sun City office where I have two medical optometrists that do all the primary eye care. Then in our Sun City West office, we have a small, fully accredited, Medicare certified, state licensed, accredited by AAAHC surgical center. It's just one operating room, but that's all I need because it's just for me. And we're not really a high volume place, so I don't need multiple operating rooms. And so that does really lend itself because, when I'm operating all day, we can have a variety of cases. And if they're a simple local case, we can have anesthesia there doing monitored anesthesia care. If it's a general case, like using an LMA, laryngeal mask, they're there doing the anesthesia. So we have a lot of flexibility having that surgery center. If back in the old days when it was prior to the surgery center, it was a little bit more challenging because you had to schedule all your cases. You had to schedule all your IV or general cases on one day and your local cases on another day. Now it doesn't matter. We just schedule. It doesn't matter because we have anesthesia coverage all the time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You touched upon this a little bit, but I just want to backtrack for a second. So, obviously you were trained as a general ophthalmologist, general comprehensive ophthalmologist. How'd you also decide early on in your career that you wanted to tackle, aesthetic surgery and plastic surgery? How'd you make that decision?
Well, in residency, I really had a keen interest in oculoplastics. I mean, I enjoyed it. Our attendings were great. So we really, unlike a lot of residencies where they don't put a lot of focus on it, we did have nice focus. And so coming out of residency, I felt very comfortable doing what I call bread and butter oculoplastics, not reconstructive things, not flaps and grafts and things of that nature, which I don't get into, but the bread and butter things that you see pretty much on almost a daily basis in clinical practice. And so just with that background, I was, even prior to the laser, I was doing oculoplastics. Then there came a point, if you think back, and you're a bit younger than me, so I don't know if you remember these days, but back in the mid 1990s, all of a sudden the big talk of the town was the CO2 laser and laser skin resurfacing, for facial laser skin resurfacing. And so that piqued my attention. And I started going to other practices across the country. I hooked up with, at the time, it was Coherent, which has subsequently been bought out by Luminous a long time ago. But Coherent had the kind of the gold standard ultra pulse CO2 laser. And so, in an effort for them to have you buy their laser, they would send you to these trainings. And I did a whole bunch of trainings and really loved what I saw. And then I started incorporating it. And as I say, in the mid 1990s, I converted 100% of my blepharoplasties to CO2 laser blepharoplasties, and have never looked back. I've not done a single non-laser blepharoplasty since then.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So the company with their training, that they had the right idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it worked out in this case.
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on these companies. It all depends on if they really have a good product. The product really speaks for itself. And it seems like the CO2 laser, sort of changed the game for you.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, how does, for the ophthalmologist that may be listening, or even the practice managers, how does an ophthalmologist build a practice with at least a partial focus on blepharoplasty? And how does this affect, in your opinion, the financial productivity of the practice?
Yeah, fantastic question. I'm a huge advocate of doing blepharoplasties for general ophthalmologists. Even someone like you who's retina trained can do it. But also, I will say, and this may be a little controversial, but I'm comfortable saying it, that I feel comfortable training non-ophthalmologists to do blepharoplasty. I just had close to your neck of the woods. I had a dermatologist who just found me on the internet and reached out to me. He's from New Jersey and came out for 3 days, spent 3 days with me. One day doing Mondays, all I do is I do about 25 to 30 blepharoplasty consultations every single Monday. So he did consultations with me, and then Tuesday and Wednesday, all we did were blepharoplasties all day long each
Wow.
day. And really, when he left, he said he felt 100% comfortable integrating it into his practice. So the point is that it's a procedure, particularly, I would say, upper eyelid blepharoplasties. When you get into lower eyelid blepharoplasties, it can get a little bit more tedious, and there are some nuances that I think maybe for the more advanced learner, I would teach that. But to begin with, the majority of people who come in who are looking for blepharoplasty, whether it be for functional reasons, which we do a lot of functional insurance authorized blepharoplasties, as well as for cosmetic reasons, upper lid blepharoplasties as a go-to is very teachable, can be performed very effectively and very safely. And that's what I do. I teach others to do blepharoplasty, whether they're ophthalmologists or not.
I think that's fantastic. And In terms of incorporating that into your practice, I know some of your cases are insurance based and some are purely cosmetic. Do you find that even the insurance cases add a lot in terms of financial productivity to a practice?
I think they certainly can. I mean, clearly, insurance ones are not going to pay as much as the cosmetic ones, but basically, you make up for it in the long run based on volume. And in my case, because I do lower lid blepharoplasties as well, I try to make it a win-win. So if I feel that the upper lids are effectively insurance related, functional, they have functional complaints, and I feel that we can get it authorized, I mention it to the patient. They get excited, and then they're more likely to add on their lowers as an ancillary procedure at the same time. So definitely, and think about it. When you think about the reimbursement for cataract surgery, unless you're doing femtosecond laser and premium implants, which of course many of us are doing, which does help the reimbursement, if you will. But if you're just old school and doing standard cataract surgery, blepharoplasties actually reimburse more than a cataract surgery in a straight comparison. Again, not including the premium options with cataract surgeries. And a blepharoplasty, a bilateral upper lid blepharoplasty, is maximum 20 minutes. And you can easily do it under local anesthesia for those patients who are a little bit nervous or anxious. Just a little bit of oral Valium. We give them 10 milligrams of oral Valium. Now, because we do have the surgery center, we're a little bit more lenient if they're super anxious and they say, hey, I really like a little IV sedation, then we don't have an issue doing that because we do have a surgery center. But prior to having a surgery center, I mean, easily I could do them all just local wide awake or local with a little Valium. So it does contribute to the bottom line. So I think it's just another tool in our tool belt to be able to not only help the patients and provide them a good experience and good results and good aesthetics, but also improve the bottom line in our practice.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I think that was very insightful what you said. And I've heard that from other plastics colleagues of mine. They'll see a patient for a sty and they'll say, well, then they were asking me about their upper lids and then their lower lids. And it's sort of, once patients trust their doctor, they have a successful outcome and experience, then it sort of opens their horizon. So I think you made a really good point about, in your case, for example, the insurance-based upper lid blepharoplasty, sort of, once they have a good outcome, it opens the doors for other things that they may be interested in.
Right. And I think, equally, if not more important in learning to do the actual physical surgery of blepharoplasty, which of course is important. But I think part of the training, like when I train other doctors, equally as important is training the physician and his or her staff members how to keep an eye out for those patients because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And especially if you have a more senior focused practice, which a lot of ophthalmologists do. I mean, it's a tremendous number of patients out there that could benefit from blepharoplasties or muleirectomies. I mean, I do a ton of muleirectomies. But you have to be looking for it and you have to plant that seed. Not arm twist the patient. We never do that. But we plant the seed. Quite often, here's a perfect example. We're doing I'm doing a cataract surgery consultation, and the staff member, before they're dilated, will mention it to the patient that, hey, have you ever thought about your eyelids as well? And the patient kind of reacts, oh, I didn't really think about it. I didn't know my eyelids were heavy, or I didn't know anything could be done. I mean, I hear that a lot.
Right.
And then next thing you know, I'm looking at them for their cataracts once they're dilated. And then I bring it up again, or even the patient will bring it up to me because now they've thought about it while they're dilating, and all of a sudden the wheels are turning, and they're now motivated. So you got to really put it out there. If you expect them to just come in asking for it, yeah, you'll get some patients. But if you know how to kind of internally market to your own patient base, It's just an untapped revenue source that's just sitting there that you're not doing anything about.
I'll tell you an interesting story from when I was in residency. We had been seeing a patient every 3 months for her diabetic retinopathy, right? So she had mild to moderate diabetic retinopathy. We were following her very closely, and I remember seeing her one time, and we had good plastics experience in my program too. And it was something I enjoyed doing, especially as a senior ophthalmology resident. I enjoyed the plastics procedures, and we had seen her multiple times, and one day I just mentioned to her, and she had this huge eyelid cyst, and bilateral. They were in both eyes, but they were relatively large, and she was a relatively young woman. She must have been in her 40s, and I just one time asked her about it. I said, "Hey, this cyst, how long has it been there, and has it ever bothered you?" And all I just asked her because I was genuinely curious, and it was like her eyes opened up, and she had been coming to the eye doctors every 3 months for years, right? But no one had really asked her about it, and she's like, "Yes, doctor, is there anything that could be done, or do I just live with this?" She's like, she just didn't know. She didn't know if this was something that could be addressed, if it couldn't be addressed. But even just asking her about it, she was all of a sudden it opened up her eyes, and I ended up doing her case, and she was so happy. She was so happy at the end of it. She had a great result. And I remember thinking, like, this is someone who's been seeing the doctors every 3 months, and for the first time, she's happy. And I just asked.
That's just such a poignant story because it's the truth. It's the truth. As ophthalmologists, we tend to have our own little niche or our own little specialty that we focus in on, but we really tend to ignore so much else that's going on with the patient. And unless you bring it up, quite often the patient is not going to bring it up. And so you need to really communicate with the patient and say, hey, this is something that can be done. It's not going to be difficult. It's going to be a quick procedure. You're going to love it. It may or may not be insurance related. That's a whole nother discussion. It's just an untapped potential that I see in so many doctors' offices. Again, I know this podcast is geared towards ophthalmologists, but I mean, I even know of a local family practice doctor that does a ton of oculoplastics and cosmetic procedures and does them well. So it can be done by other specialties as well, and I'm all about that.
I think that's fantastic. And one of the things that often comes up is access to healthcare. And I think what you're describing is sort of addressing that access to healthcare, right? Not all patients have access to an ophthalmologist, an oculoplastic surgeon, but they often do have access to a family practice doctor, right? So I think in that case, it really helps, especially if done by someone with significant experience and training in it. Even if they're a family practice doctor or a dermatologist, I think it opens up the access to care that seems to be a problem these days.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
We have a few more minutes. So as we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you're sort of well settled into your career. Again, you have a few years out more than I do. What are your interests sort of in the next, 10, 15, 20, 25 years? Where do you see your career going, and what areas sort of excite you about the future?
Well, as far as my medical practice, ophthalmology practice, I mean, I'm settled in and quite comfortable to what I'm doing now, right? Right. So for example, my work week is very repetitive. Mondays, I do my 25 or 30 blepharoplasty consultations. Fridays, I do an equal amount of cataract surgery consultations. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I operate all day. So that's my week. So I'm comfortable with that. Now, as I view down the road, what do I want to do? I have lots of things I want to do. I want to get involved more in teaching the blepharoplasty. That's something that I've just kind of started in a more formal way. So I'm going to try and get the word out there for other doctors to reach out to me and to do basically like a preceptorship in our practice for 3 days to learn how to do it. I also have other non-medical ambitions. I just recently, last month, I gave a TEDx talk in Denver on delayed gratification, your superpower to success. And I'm in the process of just starting to write a book, as well as write another TEDx talk that I would like to hopefully get landed and be able to give in the next 12 months. It's an exhaustive process, so it's not very easy to land a talk, let alone give one. So there's other things outside of medicine that I'm really interested in, and want to be out there speaking to the public and speaking to organizations. And so I'm juggling a lot of balls in the air right now, and it feels good. It keeps me young and feeling vibrant.
I was going to echo that thought exactly. I mean, that's sort of the secret, I think, to staying young and healthy. And it's so nice to get to speak with you and hear your passion sort of shine through this conversation. It's really great to hear.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank your viewers. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much to Dr. Emilio Justo for joining us today and talking to us about how to incorporate upper lid blepharoplasty into any ophthalmologist toolkit. I think we've touched upon a little bit more than that even here. We appreciate it very much. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your friends and on social media. Also, please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. Till we meet again, wishing all of you an amazing week ahead. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Justo. I appreciate it.